Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Where today we're going to be doing a review of free agency so far for every single NFL team. I will be giving who I think is the best contract for each team and the worst contract for each team. Now, some teams are going to be longer discussions than others, so let's go ahead and get in. But before we do, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And we're going to start off here with the Buffalo Bills. They made a lot of signings here, a lot of extensions, a lot of extra signings here. And obviously, the one I think is the best signing here is Josh Allen, getting him extended to that contract because he is the whole reason why this franchise is even relevant right now. So getting him locked up to that massive deal, making him a very happy player, you need to do that as the Bills. Another one that's good, Josh Palmer, 3 to 36 million, 18 million guaranteed. A little rich for Josh Palmer, but still a nice contract for him. But what I think is kind of like not too great here. I mean, there's a couple of is Joey Bosa. I just think with the injury history he has, signing him to a 1-year deal with 12 million guaranteed is quite a lot for a player who has not been healthy these past few years. Now, it is a very high reward contract if he does prove to be healthy, but he just hasn't been able to do that these past few years. So I think that was a bit rich for the Bills. Moving on to the Dolphins, I think their best signing, a very underrated signing, is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, a 2-year, $6.5 million, $3.2 million guaranteed. He was a touchdown machine for Tennessee last year with terrible quarterback play, and he's kind of like a bigger body receiver, which is a nice compliment to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and could be a good red zone target for Tua down in Miami. I think that was an absolutely great contract there. And everything else kind of like weren't really too active free agency. A lot of 1-year deals, so those aren't, I don't ever think are bad. So not really a bad contract for Miami, other than bring on Zach Wilson because Zach Wilson is just objectively terrible. Next up, we have New England. Now, I think their best deal was signing Milton Williams to a 4-year, $104 million contract. That is a bit rich for him, who was kind of like a rotational edge pass rusher for the Eagles last year, but he was an absolutely fantastic player. And I think New England has a really, really good interior presence that's going to wreak havoc for their defense. But I think their worst contract was Harold Landry, signing a 3-year, $43.5 million deal, $26 million fully guaranteed. And the dude was one of the worst pass rushers in football last year for a Titans defense that did not generate a lot of pressure. And I think it was a very rich contract to give a guy like him, who I think is going to age pretty terribly, but that's just my opinion. Next up, we got the New York Jets. Best contract. I mean, Brandon Stevens, a decent corner for 3 to 36 million. Not too terrible there. Josh Myers, a 1-year deal, but obviously, in my opinion, the worst contract was signing Justin Fields to a 2-year, $40 million deal with $30 million fully guaranteed, because he has not proven that he could be a quality starting quarterback in the NFL. He is below average as a passer, and you need to pass in order to be a starting quarterback. Now, he's a great athlete, a good runner, could have some dynamism for this Jets offense, but yeah, Justin Fields, not good at all. So definitely the worst contract for the Jets. For the Ravens, not really too much here. They signed DeAndre Hopkins on a 1-year, $5 million deal. He's just a veteran receiver. And you sign Ricard and Ronnie Stanley. So, no activity for Baltimore there. Cincinnati. Yeah, Cincinnati did not really do too much here. They signed Oren Burks to a 2-year, $5 million contract coming off the Eagles Super Bowl win. Not bad there. T.J. Slayton is a good, solid run-defending interior lineman. But they didn't really add much to this defense in terms of good additions, and they have to figure out how to keep Jamar Chase and Hendrickson happy. That is their big thing because Joe Burrow can't do it on his own, so not really too much to say there about the Bengals. The Browns, their best deal obviously is retaining Myles Garrett. To have him stay in this building to be anchor for that defense is objectively good for the team, even though that they should have been able to get a good amount of draft picks for him. That could have helped the future of the organization, but for the current on-field product, great deal there. Worst move is getting Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett just sucks, but is a backup for a backup trade. Not really much of danger of starting unless they decided that he is going to start next year. For the Steelers, best move is acquiring DK Metcalf in the trade. I think he is going to be a good addition to the Steelers' offense. Him and George Pickens would be two really big wide receivers who is ever throwing him the ball. Most likely going to be Aaron Rodgers, so we'll keep an eye on that here as well. Darius Slay is another is a good signing there. 1 year, $10 million for the defense, pretty solid. Mason Rudolph, I think, is a worst signing here. I mean, he's going to be a backup quarterback, but still not really that great of a quarterback, so I think he is the worst one here. For the Texans, yeah, they just had an absolute mess of an offseason. Their worst move was trading away Laramie Tunsil to the Commanders for. We'll get more into Commanders there because that's one of the better moves. Like, why are you getting rid of your best offensive lineman? I know he committed a ton of penalties, but why are you getting rid of your best offensive lineman, your franchise left tackle, when C.J. Stroud just had the pummeling of his life last year in Houston? Makes absolutely no sense at all, in my opinion. Their best move, they made a couple of trades. Like, I think Christian Kirk is a good addition to this receiving core, especially because Tank Dell is going to be out basically the whole year because he is a frail body. And CJ Gardner-Johnson, I think, is going to be a good addition to this defense. I think this defense is going to be solid for them, but I am scared for CJ Stroud's health. Next up, for the Colts, I think their best move was signing Charvarius Ward, a 3-year deal of $60 million, $35 million guaranteed. This is a really good corner to have for your defense. I think it's a very, very good signing. And I think their worst signing is Daniel Jones, because they're bringing him exclusively to see if Anthony Richardson can beat him out. If your idea of quarterback competition for your guy to beat out is Daniel Jones, that means you think so little of your current starter that it's like, hey, if you can't beat the worst quarterback in the league, then you don't have a job and we're done with you. So, yeah, that's not a great sign of their confidence in Anthony Richardson. They don't, if his competition is Daniel Jones. Next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, not really too much to say here. They signed Jordan Lewis to a $30 million deal for a corner for their defense, and they traded away Christian Kirk, so not really too much to say there. Tennessee, their worst deal, signing Dan Moore to a 4-year, $82 million deal with $50 million guarantee. Dan Moore was objectively awful for the Steelers the past couple of seasons, and I see him get this kind of money is very embarrassing for Tennessee. But the reason why they did is because they absolutely had a train wreck at I believe their right tackle position was absolutely awful. So it was so bad that I think Dan Moore is an upgrade for that price. So a little bit insane there. I'll say for the Titans there, that was just an objectively bad contract. The Denver Broncos, I think their best deal was Dre Greenlaw, a 3-year, $35 million contract coming over San Francisco. Just an absolutely great linebacker who was coming off an injury in the Super Bowl all last season. But I think he's going to be fully healthy and will be an objectively good linebacker for this objectively good defense. Now, I think their worst contract is Talanoa Hufanga, who signed a 3-year deal, $45 million, $20 million guaranteed. He's just very injury prone and very wishy-washy these past few years. He was a first-team All-Pro in 2022. So it was a medium risk, high reward type deal for Denver because he could be an absolute amazing guy for their defense. So potential there. Kansas City, I mean, a lot of it is just re-signing a bunch of guys from their team. Re-sign Hollywood Brown. Trey Smith got a contract extension. They did trade away a couple of their offensive linemen. I'll get into that later. They re-signed Nick Bolton. Signed Gardner Minshew to be a backup quarterback for Mahomes. So interesting choice there. So not really much to say about Kansas City. A lot of just re-signs. Vegas. Their best move, re-signing Max Crosby to a 3-year extension, $106 million. He is the face of a underrated defense there, and keeping him in Vegas is very, very key. They want to rebuild, so very good thing there. Alex Kappa, I think, is their worst move. Signing a 2-year, $11 million contract. He's objectively not a very good lineman, so not great that you're signing him there. But another move is Geno Smith acquired in a trade with Seattle in exchange for a 3rd-round pick. I just think this is a good move for them. He is the perfect bridge quarterback for them. So if they see a guy they like early in the draft or maybe later on, they can draft him, develop him behind Geno Smith, and have Geno just be a very competent quarterback for this offense. So I think that was a very good move as well. The LA Chargers. I mean, I think Najee Harris is a very good move for them. Getting a very physical runner to run behind this offensive line. Very good there. Resigning Khalil Mack, I think, is very good for this defense. So Yeah, not too much to say about the Chargers. Cowboys. They traded for Khalil Elam. I think that's objectively a very bad move. He's not a good cornerback at all. So, yeah, not very impressed with the Cowboys offseason. Not too much to say there. The New York Giants. Paulson Adebo, objectively, is a very good contract for them. They signed a really good corner for not too terrible of a contract. That is a very, very good move there. So, that's where I'm going to give the Giants their flowers. Next up, we got the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, they signed Saquon Barkley to the extension. They acquired Kenyon Green, re-signed Zach Bond, just kind of keeping the core guys that they had together. So I think Philadelphia had a pretty good offseason as well. For the Washington Commanders, they had a very, very busy offseason. They brought in Deebo Samuel, who's going to be a second option for this offense behind Terry McLaurin. I mean, he's not really the all-pro he was in 2021 anymore, but he's still a very versatile weapon that they can use. Be a very good receiver as well. They re-signed Zach Ertz, I think is a good deal. They brought in Laramie Tunsil, which is, and I think was a fleece. Acquired in a trade Texan along with a 4th-round pick, saying for 3rd and 7th round picks in this year's draft, and a 2nd and 4th in 2026. They acquire a really good blindside left tackle for Jaden Daniels to have, and I think that is absolutely an amazing, objectively amazing move for them. They also signed Javon Kinlaw. They re-signed Bobby Wagner. Overall, this is an excellent, excellent offseason for the Commanders, who are coming off an NFC Championship appearance, and it only made their team better. Next up, the NFC North, the Bears, again, had another really, really good offseason. Their biggest weakness last year was offensive line. They're addressing that on paper. They brought in Jonah Jackson in a trade with the Rams, and then had a signing of a contract extension, and they brought in Joe Thuney in a trade with the Chiefs to build up that interior of the line. They also saw Drew Dahlman to a 3-year, $42 million contract to be their starting center, and Sadayo Odebayingo and Grady Jarrett to contract as well, boosting up their interior defensive line. I wanted Odeyingbo, I cannot say that name right, to go to the Packers, but instead he goes to the Bears. Grady Jarrett, a little more worried about. He is old for a defensive lineman and is long in the tooth, so maybe it work out. Again, really good offseason on paper for the Bears, but as they've had for the past 3 years, they've always had that, but that doesn't translate into on-field success. Will that happen again? I don't know. Next up, we got the Detroit Lions. I mean, not really too much. They signed Derek Barnes to a 3-year, $25 million extension and signed DJ Reed in free agency. I mean, not really too much. There's a lot of re-signs here. The Packers had a very quiet offseason. Aaron Banks, I think, is a bit of an overpay for a starting quality guard, but that's what you have to do when you whiff on draft picks like Josh Myers, because we're going to move Elton Jenkins over to center and have Banks in at left guard. I mean, I think he'll still be a good player for the Packers, but was an overpay. The Nate Hobbs deal, though, was absolutely fantastic. 4 years, $48 million deal to be a really good boundary corner, so happy with that move there. And another really good offseason was the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, they really boosted their defensive line, signing Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave to contracts there, boosting up that interior pass rush. Really, really good there. They also added some more offensive line help because I also struggled there as well. So they really are boosting up this team to see if J.J. McCarthy is the answer at quarterback. We'll see. Their season really does depend on J.J. It really, really does. So, but overall, good offseason for the Vikings. NFC South, not much to say there about the Falcons. I mean, they signed Jake Matthews to another extension. Devon Diablo they signed, so not too much there to say. The Panthers, they signed J.C. Horn to a 4-year, $100 million extension. I think it's a bit rich for J.C. Horn, but still is a pretty solid player for them to build around when he's healthy. Signed Bobby Brown to a contract, Deshaun Wharton to a contract. So they're building up. They are building up here, so not too bad there for the Panthers. Saints, though, should not have been active in free agency at all, but they signed Justin Reed to a contract. They extended Chase Young, which I do think is good for them. He's a very solid player for them. But this team needs to reset their cap hard, and they did not do that. They kept spending money that they don't have. Tampa Bay, they re-signed Chris Godwin, which I think is a very good signing for them. Even though he was hurt last year, so kind of bad not there. Levante David re-signed. They also signed Hassan Reddick for their pass rush. Pretty solid offseason for the Buccaneers. For the Cardinals, re-signing Baron Browning was a very good deal for them, but overall, they signed Josh Sweat. as well. So that was a very, very good signing for them as well. So they really boosted up this defensive line, which they needed to. So I think good for the Cardinals there. The Rams, I mean, they brought back Matthew Stafford on a contract that everyone thought he might be traded, but ended up not being traded. So I think Matthew Stafford keeps the Super Bowl contention open. They brought in Devontae Adams to replace Cooper Kupp, which I think is an upgrade for them. Cooper Kupp is definitely not the same player as he once was. And that was basically all they did. San Francisco, they let go of a lot of players. It was more of a shedding of old talent to see if new ones will develop. Be very, very interesting to see how San Francisco does. So not too much to talk about with them. Then we have the Seattle Seahawks. The big thing is they signed Sam Darnold to a $300 million deal. It's a little bit interesting because they're kind of like rebuilding, but they also spent all this money on Sam Darnold. I think this might be a bit of an overpay because we don't know if Sam Darnold is going to be good outside of the Kevin O'Connell system in Minnesota, because that was his one good year as a starter. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they brought back Geno Smith, so Sam Darnold does have a chance there, but it'll be interesting to see. Overall, that's just my opinion on free agency so far. If any more news for the Packers specifically comes about, I'll let you know. But yeah, thank you so much. Like, comment, subscribe. See you later. Peace.